Hey, Jared here. We're doing the binge eating book series. If you're new to binge eating, here's where to start. If you're a little bit on your way, here's where to continue. Be sure to like this post, comment down below which of these is your favorite books. And then there's also a post down below which contains all 10 and a little bit of descriptions on them if you're more into written content. I'm going to be reviewing these 3 books over here, which I actually have physical copies of. And then I have a little notepad over there where I wrote down the other books I have on my phone that I can't read, but I've read it. Now, to be clear, the list down below, I haven't read all of them. I've read it, I think, 7 out of 10. So I'm going to be reviewing the ones that I have in copy first, and then I'll be reviewing the ones that are on my phone, and I'll go from memory. So let's get started, shall we? The first book that I love, the book that really changed my life. I was in graduate school. I had lived at a monastery, stopped binging, worked as a personal trainer, started binging again. And then in graduate school, I discovered this intuitive eating book. Oh! If you're new to binge eating, if you are new to understanding that there is this thing that's binge eating, that is called binge eating, if you're new to that, this is an amazing book to start with. It outlines practical principles. It has so many stories in here. It's accessible. It explains dieting, the dangers of dieting and restriction in clear language. It explains the sort of the cultural stuff that's going on. And we'll get into the culture later on with another book that I have on my phone. So, amazing book. This is my top book that I would recommend if you are a beginner, if you are new to this whole way of eating, this new way of eating. Number 1 book I'd recommend. The next book that I have in the flesh is the Labyrinth of Binge Eating. And, not everyone is the same in terms of binge eating, in terms of overeating. I, myself, in hindsight, I had a lot of shame voice, a lot of inner critic, a lot of depression, a lot of cravings, a lot of binges. But, the body image was not as bad for me as it was for some people. My binges were less frequent than others. And why I say that is because binge eating is a spectrum. And this is a real heartfelt story of someone who's been pretty much at the worst end. I'm talking just despair for decades. And her personal story, this is an autobiography in the Labyrinth of Binge Eating, is just amazing. It's heartfelt, it's real, it's gutsy. It shows that hope is possible. That's right. Your life might be falling to shit. And if your life is falling to shit, I highly recommend this book. All right? Because it shows you that you can have hope, okay? So don't lose that little hope in there. And then lastly, okay, so this is a popular book, Brain Over Binge. I put it in the advanced section because there's a lot of exercises in the book, and the book really focuses on the craving voice. This could be a new concept. It focuses really on the cravings and on the eating side of things. So it really drills down into specific things. Like if you have this cravings, right? Cravings. This is a great book for that, right? It's a great book for that. It can be a beginner book as well, but it doesn't really talk about the culture. It doesn't give as much about body image. It doesn't go into sort of the broader big picture. And so that's why I'm putting it in the advanced category, but it's one of those books I have in person, and it's a fantastic read. I love the science of it. If you're into science, if you're into specific science, targeted science approaches for dealing with cravings, this book is for you. It's going to give you language about your left brain, your emotional brain, and how that relates to cravings, how you can really detach yourself from the cravings and get separation. So useful to to take a look at. All right, so now I'm going to look at my notepad because those are the books that I have in person, but I wrote these down so I wouldn't forget. But I've read Health at Every Size. It's on my phone. I got the Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for Eating Disorders by Christopher Fairburn. I also have Anti-Diet by Christy Harrison, and then When Food is Comfort. So I'll just go through these real quick. Again, there is a written article down below, so be sure to check that out. There's links where you can get these books as well. And then lastly, be sure to leave a comment. Which of these have you read? All right, let me know. I'd love to discuss with you. Which of these have you read? Leave a comment down below. Okay, so Health at Every Size, that's probably like, I mean, the book, right? It's the Bible. It's a broad overview from nutrition to body image to the history to politics to dieting to getting over dieting. It's all of it, right? And even the intuitive eating book, which I mentioned, often references the Health at Every Size paradigm. Now, Linda Bacon, now Lindo, did an amazing job about really sparking a movement. Health at Every Size means that at any size, you can be healthier. It's not saying that if you're 500 pounds, you're healthy, quote unquote. It's saying there's always hope. There's always progress. It also gives a lot of voice and empowerment to our fat discriminatory society. It's horrible. This shit that I started reading was just, it was really eye-opening for me like years ago. And now I see it everywhere, how fat phobic our society is, how shameful this can be. And so if you're brand new to this whole binge eating thing, and you can tell it's the tip of the iceberg, and you are interested in, like, you're kind of nerd, you know, you got some time to dig in, to sink your teeth into some stuff. Health at Every Size covers a lot of ground. It really did provide the context for a lot of the current modern day treatments for binge eating, or at least for a community to gather around. Like, for example, the next book, and I'll distinguish what I mean for a community to gather around versus treatments, because cognitive behavioral therapy for eating disorders, this is an established treatment, all right? But there's no real community around it. It is a scientific, hard read. I wouldn't recommend it. I would not recommend it. Okay, it's a tough read, but basically, empirical science shows definitively you can treat eating disorders. Period. You can do it. There is a cure. This is not cigarettes where there's very little cures out there. There is a cure. It's food. You are meant to have food in your life. You're meant to have food, right? So there is a cure. This book is the science of that from a cognitive behavioral standpoint. Do not read this book unless you are a super duper science nerd like me, okay? Like, this book is tough. Pardon me, my air conditioner just went on. One sec. All right, we're back. Okay, so that book is a tough read. Don't recommend it. But if you are into the science, if you're into this like scientific language, if you're into super duper research, then this book might be for you. I put it in the advanced section. Anti-Diet. This is also in the advanced section. I loved finding this book because I'd read all these books about dieting and how dieting is bad. And those books were my eating enlightenment, right? Like, I joined the monastery, gotten away from all the noise, stopped binging. And then I go to be a personal trainer where everyone's obsessed with weightlifting and losing weight and all this other stuff. And I start getting into my same old habits. I start hiding, I start lying, I start getting cravings, fighting the cravings, giving in, shame, thinking about all these. When I finally saw these dieting, the theory of dieting and all this other stuff, that was my eating enlightenment. Boing! It was like, hallelujah. Oh my God, this is amazing. Now, the unanswered question is, where did that dieting mindset come from? And that's what anti-diet answers to a T. It was so cool reading this. I mean, she goes back like thousands of years, 1,000 years to the Greeks, showing that, body image was a thing with the Greeks, and that it often has racist overtones, that where white food was good and the other colored food was bad. It really shows how the obsession with weight began. It traces its roots, and that really gave me a lot of information that I was really curious about why this weight loss culture exists and why we seem to have these internal models. And just a little side tangent before we get on to the next book. You might wonder, like, why does the history matter? Why does this stuff matter for treatment? Why does learning about the culture of dieting matter? I'll say two things. One, you don't need the culture to stop binging, right? Like, you don't need to know any of the history. You can just focus on the brain, focus on being able to calm yourself down, focusing on understanding how restriction works, building your mindfulness skills, having a good life. You can do this stuff without the history. But at the core, there might be like this sliver. Even if you do stop binging, there might be this core where you still don't really like your body. You still, you're no longer binging, but like you're still, you don't fully see what's going on. And so that is why the culture, basically learning the culture can help you feel empowered. It can get you angry. Okay? Like, it can get you angry at these thoughts in your head, that you keep on thinking these thoughts, but you realize that these thoughts have been passed down through generations. And so you can get angry at the injustices that are going on. You can kind of tap into some power. No, this is fucked up that my body's being judged. This is fucked up that I've been lied to about weight loss. This is fucked up. Like, no, I am going to take a stand, and I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to let go of trying to control everything. I am not going to base my self-esteem on my weight like society wants me to. It can help you get this deeper push to actualize your potential. Flowery? Maybe. Let's get on to the next book. When Food is Comfort. This is the final book that I've read. So When Food is Comfort, this really hits home for me because my childhood, a big part of therapy for me, I've been in therapy forever. Well, 7 years, 6 years? A big part of it for me, my therapeutic journey, not the journey living as a monk, but the eating therapy, the shame therapy, it's been exploring my childhood. And so to me, this book it gives language about the child, the traumatized child that oftentimes is there when an eating struggle is present, how to reconnect with your inner child, how to speak to the inner child, how to listen to the inner child, why the inner child is important. Don't read this book if you don't want to get into the inner child work, your historical relationship with your parents. If you don't want to dig up trauma, do not read this book, okay? When Food is Comfort. But if you're drawn to the inner child, if you're drawn to healing the child, the wounded child within, that book is an amazing resource. And it's really unique because all these books are unique, but that's one of the few that I've really seen do a deep dive on how to kind of access that inner child. And so, yeah, let me know in the comments down below which of these books you've read, which of these books are your favorite. All right. So either which ones have you read? And if you have read one, which one is your favorite? And if you haven't read any, which one sounds most interesting? All right. Be sure to like, be sure to subscribe. The post is down below. If you just want to get on the email list, that's also down below as well. All right. So namaste.